You're watching Inside the Big Bend.
J.L. Sublett was a dirt farmer, came in here and tried to set up a farming operation in the Rio Grande floodplain in the early 20th century. He formed a partnership with Albert Dorgan. They operated what's called the Grand Canyon Farms for a couple of decades, Rio Grande floodplain, between Santa Elena Canyon and Castellon. They provided feed crops for some of the local ranchers as well as food products for some of the local communities, particularly the mining community at Terlingua. Sublett's farming operation was irrigated by water that was pulled out of the Rio Grande, and remnants of the old irrigation system are still in place. The river flooding has started to reclaim that. It's deposited a lot of silt on top of this. But we've been able to go back and use aerial photography. You can see the old farm fields. You can see the outline of the farmland. And we're able to go back now and by digitizing over that, we can take that digital file, load it into a GPS unit, walk back on the ground and retrace the edge of that. You can also see how the vegetation has encroached upon it, significantly altered that whole historic scene. One of the things that we've been able to do using historic photographs is using some of the Sublett family photographs. I've got one in particular of Eunice Sublett, who's at the front porch of their house on top of the mesa overlooking the farmland. And in the distance we can see in that photograph, we can see cotton fields and the river in the background, in the distance in there. And that's helped us to get an idea of what it actually looked like. We had a wonderful photograph here taken by Nat Dodge of that floodplain scene from a different view, a different angle, but it's a much more scenic view. There's Cerro Castellon in the background. This really gives us a good visual effect for what that farmland looked like and how the floodplain was very open during the historic period. There were about 30 acres or so of land that was farmed during the 1920s and 30s. That vegetation now that is grown up in that includes tamarisk and mesquite. There's a lot of mesquite that's come in since the 1930s and 40s and completely reclaimed portions of the floodplain. One of the things that we try to do at Sublett Farm is clear that out from the original farm fields. So we used a combination of things. In 2006 and 2007 we did a prescribed burn that actually got in and cleared out a lot of the vegetation in the floodplain around Sublett Farm District. We've also been using a lot of manual reduction. We've been using mechanized equipment, a gyrotrack, to go in and clear that vegetation. We did one treatment in 2008 with a gyrotrack. It was preempted a major flood on the Rio Grande. We had to halt that work. We have a number of National Register sites in the area around the Sublett Farm. The Sublett Farm itself is a National Register district. There's also the Castellon Historic Compound and all of the historic buildings there over the years. We've had vegetation grow up against them, around them. That creates issues for structural stability of the buildings. The roots of the trees impinge on the foundations, destabilize the structure. And so this vegetation needs to be removed periodically. We've tried to create a 10-foot wide buffer around all of the historic buildings. This photograph, donated by the Sublett family, was taken sometime in the 1930s, and this is their farmhouse on top of the mesa overlooking the floodplain. You can see it was basically a fairly large adobe house, probably had 2 to 3 rooms inside, but we have a later photograph taken in the 1950s that shows how this original house was expanded and essentially doubled in size. As the family grew, the needs of the family increased, they needed more room, more space, so they just added onto their house. This is pretty typical of the way a lot of the historic buildings, historic ruins that we see in the park. This is very typical. Start out with a single room or maybe 2 rooms, then those houses expand as the family grows.